Today we've got Matt Carter from Emory with us. Super excited to chat with you, Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm
It
doing
looks like you're in a
great.
camper van, but I know you're not in a camper van.
Nope, I'm in a bedroom that is similar to a camper van.
Just a small little bedroom with the lofted bed and everything.
That's right. Just like
Hopefully,
it's like a tour bus, except my daughter lives in here.
Do you feel more at home in a very small room with customized
I
bunking?
feel anything that's custom is where I feel good. Anything that is not custom, I start to get nervous. You can
Uh,
imagine school, prison, army, not good.
so what
Anywhere where
happened?
I get to make it the way I want it, that's what
Yeah,
I like. Doesn't matter. That's kind of the criteria.
sure. What happens when you go into a buddy's house in the suburbs and they've got the cookie cutter houses where everyone looks the same? How do you feel when you walk into one of those clinical kind of homes?
It is okay. I do understand it. I can respect it, but
I think you're just being nice.
I grew up in the very rural setting, like in the woods, very rural. So to me, the fact, the rural situation is very unique. Every land, every place, all the woods are, different, unique and whatever. And I also really am a big fan of the city. Like I live in the city in Seattle and stuff. And it's like I love New York. I really like but I have a harder time fitting in because I grew up in a rural setting.
Sure.
But the in between suburbs is the least of what works for me. But I struggle to live in the city, but I like the stimulation level of a city a lot. And I
yeah.
like nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
feel like I would either, if I had a choice, I'd either go with super rural, like nobody lives anywhere near me, or super like high rise city kind
Right.
of like vibe. But like, yeah, that like sort of suburb vibe, not for me, not for me at
Right.
all.
And there's good things about it. I've done it before, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
I get it.
But
I
it's
get it.
all DIY, all custom. Anything I can make my own and make it, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's just that I'm in control of how it is. I like that feeling.
Other than your music, obviously, what is the thing you're most proud of when it comes to a customized project you've completed?
Oh, it is all
Maybe a
really very
kid. You would
continuous. But when
customize
you
one of
talk,
those kids.
yeah, well, kids are that way. But you know, I it's true that when the scene was kind of down, let's say, like before there's a period about 2009 when we did get our own bus. We bought a Greyhound bus and converted it so we could manage it and run it and build it ourselves versus before that we were like maybe on commercial tour buses and before that the van and everything. So when you could say times were harder, the scene was down, we moved into, instead of renting a commercial bus, doing our own bus. And the customization of that lifestyle that lasted, close to a decade, 6 or 8 years of us running buses and living that lifestyle, that there's nothing better than like that is a very highlight of my life for sure, is the effort put into your own moving quarters where you take your band around the country and bring your green room and sleeping quarters and rig. Uh,
Mm.
I mean, that I would almost say that's what kept us going, is the investment in that lifestyle more than just, playing shows here or there when times were, leaner, I would say.
Right,
Hmm.
right.
Well, I would imagine that you probably are able to extend your career a little bit more the farther and more distance you're able to have between you and Toby, right? That seems to be if you guys were still in a van and you were having to like tour with Toby in a van, Emery
Yeah.
would have ended 15 years ago,
Or
probably,
live in
right?
the same city, but we've
My
lived not
goodness.
in the same city for a long time too. But yeah, no, I mean, Toby and I have, there's something special about Toby and I in that there was a whole period where Devin wasn't in the band.
Right.
And it was always clear to Toby and I that we're pretty good collaborators overall. Like that's a good, but it is true that we fight the most. But I think that's really he and I have no problem fighting and no problem collaborating. Both of those they're very connected, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Who
that's true. That's true
who
friendship, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
who's the stinkiest person you've ever had to be on tour with? Maybe it's a kind of like a more full-time member of Emory, or maybe it's like one of your kind of like touring members, but who has
Yeah.
been the stinkiest person where it's like
W-
I want to sleep on the very opposite side of the bus as that person?
We had a sound guy one time named Brant, and he
I
was very
love you
stingy.
using. I love that you're using first names. That makes me very
Yes.
happy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, he
Throw
was
him under the
awesome.
bus.
He was
The
cool.
custom
He was
bus.
very cool. He was like a local kid that was younger than us in Seattle, like even in 2002, who was like promoting shows. He's almost like a hippie like kid who was cool. And then so we knew him, and then we, you know, made it and were a band, and then later took him on the road as a sound guy, and that was his first experience as a sound guy. But it was like, I don't know if it was his socks or whatever it was, but it was like the time that comes to mind when you said there was a smell problem on the bus. It was when he was there. um and then he went on, I think we were his first time when he was out on the road, and I think he went beyond that and was like, wound up doing sound at higher and higher levels and had a good I think he worked for Portugal the Man probably, and did some other
Damn.
stuff.
Well, hopefully he
But
he
but
invested
that was
into
what comes to mind when you say stinky on the bus, and
yeah.
uh,
Well,
it, you
hopefully
know
as he went higher levels, hopefully he like invested
I
eventually
think so.
into like a good laundry detergent and yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately everybody, you deal with different people at different times on their progression, and if they're going to continue on, they're going to have to achieve higher and higher levels of social and professional and skilled, stuff to go on. But that
Yeah.
is one thing we've seen a lot, is people that we've known or worked for that have gone to higher and higher levels, and so they are obviously able to figure it out. And one of our friends, Trevor, has just been he was in Number One Gun, and he's gone on to like work for, we had at least a couple people that went on to Death Cab. He went on and worked for Death Cab, and then he went to LCD Sound System and some other people, and then he's Eric Clapton's stage manager. And last I heard, he's working for Taylor Swift on the
Wow.
next year.
Wow.
So
So
people
he's just on
do
airplanes
it.
all the time, apparently,
Yeah,
according to
yeah. I mean, there's
the
just these
internet.
people that wind up being in the professional side of it, and they're like, it's the most cool. It's the coolest because they're the actually most successful on a professional level. Because being a band
Yeah.
it never becomes truly professional, but being a crew or a tech, it actually becomes totally
Yeah.
professional. Like at these
Yeah.
really high levels. It's cool to see.
So my day job is as a high school teacher, and I mainly teach seniors. And one of the things I ask them, we're coming up towards the end of the year here. One of the things I ask them at the end of the year is, would you rather have fame or would you rather have fortune? And they think that they always go hand in hand, but that's clearly not true. Obviously, I think you've picked one of the two,
Well,
or maybe not. What do you think?
well, I think both are terrible, fame and fortune, but both are ruined as far as I'm concerned. Uh,
Was there a
which one
point in
do
your
I
life?
have? I mean, my
Well,
level of
obviously
fame is
you got fame.
obviously very minor, and my level of fortune is obviously extremely minor. So I don't even know which one you think I have less of. I don't know.
You're telling us
Either
you can
one are
like go to
high.
Whole Foods right now in Seattle and nobody knows who you are?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like which one literally I mean, I actually probably feel like really fortunate the fact that I can make money and do what I
Yeah.
do with as little fame feels maybe actually I don't know which way you're thinking of it, but I don't even know what you mean.
Well, I was thinking as a band member, as you were already alluding to, that you're probably making less money than the guy who's touring with Taylor Swift, right?
Oh, way
But
less.
but
Yeah.
behind the scenes, he's like no one's
Yeah.
gonna recognize that guy.
Okay, so in that sense I have more fame, but it's just I
Right.
don't think of
Right.
like I do agree that I have a level of fame. Like
Yeah.
I do have to agree to that on some level, but I would just say that the minorness of it, I do consider to be an asset. Like if it
Yeah.
were more, it would not be. It would clearly not be better. I like that is very. I would probably like to make more money, and I would definitely make more money and have less fame. I think like I
Yeah.
don't see any benefit in more fame. Really, I
Yeah.
really
Right.
don't see the benefit there.
Yeah.
But
There's also there is
I
something to be
try to just
said.
like what I do, and hopefully neither of those is, both of them I ultimately consider toxic.
Sure.
There is something to be said about like there's fame and then there's like fame where your face is recognizable,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
yeah.
Like for example, I don't know why I'm like
Trent
thinking of
Williams,
this,
left
but
tackle, right?
right. Or like think of like the band Wheatus. Would anybody
Mm,
like you could be in the same grocery store right now with that guy and you would have no idea that that's the guy that wrote Teenage Dirtbag, right?
right.
And in the same way, like Matt, you probably, I'm sure you have been like in a grocery store or like some public setting, and I guarantee you there is somebody there who has listened to Emery before, and they have no idea that it's you, because they don't connect your face to that, right?
Right.
So that's
Yes.
like a whole other level, is where you have fame where it's connected to your face.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's good to, I mean, yeah, to have it connected to your face. I mean, I guess that's cool or something, but the mindset of feeling like you, um, like in the situations where you know you are recognizable, those situations are more artificial feeling.
Yeah.
That is, it actually is worse in the long run to be recognizable. I truly believe that
Mm.
because it
Yeah.
alters your ability to interact naturally in any environment. You know,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
feels good. It might feel good on some level, but it ultimately, I just don't. I do think it's not good.
Yeah, because everyone then has a motive, or they have a different thought process or bias as they're talking to you, or they're trying to interact with you, right?
Yeah, and it's not nefarious really, it's
Right.
just built in, you know, like, if I'm at like, I'm the most time I've ever felt famous was at when Bad Christian was kind of maybe at, you would say, its height, and I was at an Under Oath show that was big. So I was, like, at a big Under Oath show with 2,000 people, but I was just there in the crowd, but I was to that particular audience at that particular time. They found me recognizable because those shows are bigger than Emory shows. So if
Yeah,
I'm at an Emory show, of course I get recognized, but I'm literally in the band and it's a smaller show. But
sure.
this is like 2,000 people at a thing, and I'm everywhere I walk, people are recognizing me. That I'm more famous at an Under Oath show at that time than I've ever been at an Emory show. And so at that moment, that was one of the weirder like times where I was like, oh, like I'm literally just walking around getting recognized at not my show, you know. That so I thought but nonetheless, that's a pretty narrow set of people that where
Yeah.
in which you can be recognized. I can walk out in the city and never be recognized at all, you know.
This is good words of wisdom, because Cullen was recently recognized at the last Furnace Fest, and
That's
so
true.
I'm surprised you're not writing notes down, Cullen, to figure out
Yeah,
how to
I
handle
gotta keep
your
track of
your
that.
big fame.
Yeah. Yeah, first time I've ever been recognized anywhere outside of, an athletic community, and then Mason, everywhere we go, everyone's like, "Is that Mason Menega?" Asking me, I'm like, "Yeah, it is, just go talk to him, he's a nerd."
People only recognize me at Under Oath shows, though. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
well, Matt, let's talk about just kind of where you're at right now with Emory. I know you guys are about to go on tour. That's why I was like, let's get this in as soon as we can. I'm gonna see you guys in, like, I think, like a couple weeks or something in Minneapolis. So I'm super stoked to jam out, see you guys. Actually, here's what's funny. I've been listening to Emory for 20 years now. I've been listening since Walls came out. I still remember seeing you guys on Steel Roots, if you remember Steel Roots, Matt.
Tight, yeah.
So I remember seeing you guys on, for 20 years. This is technically the first, no, sorry, technically the second Emory show I've ever seen. It's
Yeah.
been, I don't know what it is, but like for whatever reason, I just like missed a lot of your guys' shows. I saw you guys at Furnace Fest, and then I've seen Toby and Devin together when they were doing like some acoustic stuff, but that I
Mm.
think is kind of it. Like this might be, I'm pretty sure this is the second Emory related show I've ever seen. So I'm
Well,
super stoked to see you guys.
Mason, weren't you there at, Furnace Fest, 2 years ago?
That's what I was saying. I think that was the first like
Okay.
Furnace Fest I've ever, or the first like Emory show I've ever seen.
Okay.
So this is
Yeah,
like,
so
yeah, like,
sorry, you guys cut out on me for a second, that's on me.
yeah. So yeah, I just haven't seen you guys a lot. So I'm super stoked to see you guys. But yeah, talk a little bit about the tour, what you guys are gonna be up to. Yeah, what are some of the shows that you're excited about? Yeah, just tell us about the tour.
Well, it's a lot of, Midwest, which is somewhere we hadn't been in a while. This is the year with the Weeks In 20th anniversary. This, like, we got to make sure we go as many places as possible. So it just gives the occasion to where we have more total legs of regions that we do, because we tour in a mostly regional way, where we'll do 2 weekends plus a week, stringing that together, and that'll be 10 or 14 days or something like that, where you go more than across 2 weekends. And so we've, cleared enough people for enough time to where this year we were able to say yes to more than we have in a really long time, which means ultimately we get to go to Des Moines, we get to go to, Toledo, we're
Yeah.
going to Cleveland, we're going to places that we don't necessarily always get to go every time we're doing a certain show or act or album playthrough or whatever. This year is, our most shows we've done in a very long time. So a lot of it is Midwest, Minneapolis particularly, and it's cool because they're all selling really well. Like Grand Rapids and just like places we hadn't been, they're just selling really good because we hadn't been there. So it's like nice to know that it's not that necessarily people forget about you. It's like you actually can build up demand. It's
Right.
a good thing when you hadn't been to places instead of like when we first started, it was like you try to go to Atlanta 3 or 4 times a year just to
Right.
make sure people don't forget you. And now it's nice that if we're going to go to Grand Rapids, oh, good. There's plenty of people there who hadn't seen us in a while. Now the tickets are selling good. So that's this year we get to kind of harvest on a lot of that.
Yeah. I wish I could go. I have a wedding to go to, unfortunately. So that's a bummer for me. But I'm glad you guys are doing that. Are you guys still on the Greyhound bus?
No, the bus we had wound up having two of them, and we sold them at some point because, I mean, it really was like I really feel I'm sincere when I say we were putting our effort and energy into it because it is like you're constantly building, repairing. You're in tune with all the systems of that bus. It's like your energy really is actually in it, and so and then getting it placed, it's a very heavy tax, and it kind of occupied our minds for a lot of period of time. And then around the pandemic time or before that, we understood we were kind of getting out of the bus era and being a little differently strategic with how we would do everything. And we sold the two buses, and we sold them to a guy in like the hills of Tennessee who his version of things was he has invented a technology that powers off of just water, that you can
Oh,
tap into full electricity and things out of
Like a
just water
dam?
alone, hydrogen kind of powered
he broke physics,
thing.
is what you're saying.
And he had a bunch of trailers and things out in a compound somewhere in Tennessee, and our two buses are now a part of his compound.
Experiments.
Yes, so they're parked out there like they don't travel anymore, but he's used them in his compound where his experiment. And that was the guy who we sold the buses to for a few $1,000s.
I love it. I love it.
That's amazing. So,
And we bought them from a Mennonite family who had 9 kids, and they sold the buses to get dental care for their kids
Was it in
in
Pennsylvania?
Idaho. That's where
In
in Idaho.
Idaho.
Yeah.
I didn't know
So
Idaho
it's like
had
the whole
Mennonites.
scene around buses is like, I'm telling you, it's the best. It's so, I
So
mean, it's cool.
the Mennonites you sold to, were they like more like
That's who we bought it from, the Mennonites.
yeah, that's sorry, that's what I meant to say. Buy. Were they more Hutterite like or more Amish like or more traditional like
They were
goofy like?
they were Amish like, but a little bit more modern. Like they bought the thing so that they could vacation on it and stuff, but they ran a farm on their, they were
Sure.
pretty small community based people, but I don't think Amish, not to that
Sure.
level of insular, but nonetheless, they just had like 9 kids on a farm and
Yeah.
needed to sell that bus because they weren't ever going to turn it into the vacation thing that they thought that they might.
Yeah.
And that's who we got the bus from, and then sold it to the guy who was doing the water energy extraction technology in the Tennessee
Interesting.
woods.
They probably use it as their family vehicle.
Yeah.
Or they probably were using it as their family vehicle, I should say. I love Mennonite people. We have a lot in
Yeah,
in
they're
my
very, very
area.
cool.
Yeah, they are. Mason, you had a question. Sorry.
well, so all right, so we're 2024 and Week's End came out in 2004. What is interesting, or I'd love to hear kind of like your reflection on kind of those like mid 2000 years, knowing that Week's End is 20 years now, which maybe I don't know if you find that hard to believe that it's 20 years old, like it's almost legally able to drink. Uh, but I often think about like, all right, between Week's End and The Question, at least in my mind, they're not even necessarily my favorite Emery albums, but I would imagine that those are probably like more of the two popular albums. Like if you were gonna do a 20th anniversary tour, out of Emery albums, it's probably gonna be those two albums. But I'd love to hear just from like your own reflections of like what you feel like might be like when people think back to Emery, what are the album like what's the album that they're like that's the Emery album, like that's the album we should do a 20th or 25th or whatever anniversary to? Like is it Week's End, is it The Question, is it another album? Like I'm just curious kind of what you think of
Or do you
when
do
you
it for
think of
all of
that.
them?
I mean, it's not clear. It's not clear to me to how to disentangle the length of the time you would have a fan base from what it means to be a 10-year cycle or a 20-year cycle, and where the genre and terminology of emo itself as a concept, or underground and punk music even, is in the wider culture. I think all those things are not necessarily predictable, but we happen to find ourselves in a generation where bands can have existed 10 and 20 years, where
Yeah.
when they started, there was no thought that there was no thought that any band that's around 2004, the year 2024, wasn't something that could be imagined on any level. Like, it
Right.
wasn't anybody's goal, ambition, remote thought that 20 years from that time you could even be known or remembered. That
Mhm.
did I There's no way. Before there was like internet based stuff, it felt like as soon as there's no more CDs going off the shelf, nobody will know your name within weeks. That is distinctly what it felt like to be made noise about in a thing that was happening. It felt as temporary as that moment at the time. You didn't think there were 10-year or 20-year anniversaries, and there really kind of wasn't for most bands, or anything like that. So the fact that there's bands that had some continuous and some non-continuous activity, but it just never was clear that there was a future for any of it. It just wasn't part of the calculation. But um it makes sense, but it's not clear that there even will continue to be. Really, you have to always feel it's day to day. Like,
Mm,
just like it is, if it were sports, it's like you don't really expect you're necessarily going to be around next year. You have to. That is the mindset. It feels like you don't necessarily know you're going to be around. Why would you be able to sell tickets next year at all? But for sure, the week's end in question have the most momentum, and have the most 20 10. They had power at 10 years, that you could go, oh, holy shit, 10 years of this.
Yeah.
It somehow means something more than just nothing. And then the 20-year even more, and the genres up and all that. But the question, I don't know. I mean, the question did sell more, and you would say at the time was more successful. But
right.
just the week's end, the 20-yearness, the originality of it, and in retrospect, the earliness of what it was, to where it did kind of get to show up relatively early to the whole scene, the week's end. So I think
Mhm.
of that as one of its most unique things was it was on the actual early side. Like, we felt like we were late to Taking Back Sunday by 6 months, but in retrospect, it just came out the same time as
Yeah.
Right.
Taking Back Sunday's first record, which seemed it didn't seem that way at the time, but now that yeah, it was just like it came out right around the Used and Taking Back Sunday or something. Like,
Right.
Right.
how early it really was, um, is very cool. So I think that's
Right.
kind of what is neat about it. There's 20 years already on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about, like, especially in comparison to the question, is the question obviously, again, like you mentioned, sold more, but I do think, kind of in terms of lasting legacy, it does seem, and again, I could be totally wrong, it does seem that there might be some more lasting legacy to Week's End in comparison to the question. I could be wrong, but like that
Well,
is
another
what,
way to look at it
yeah,
is
that's what it
the
seems like.
the question sold more and was more successful, but Walls and Ponytail Parades are track 1 and 2 on our first record, and they're our biggest songs. And if you play
Right.
them today, they get the most reaction and they have the most
Right.
plays on Spotify. So, okay, that's fucking it. We just did it immediately. Song 1 and 2, and then nothing ever since is just whatever. Like that, there's a distinct sense when that in which that might be literally exactly the case. Like, our first two songs, best two, and then whatever after that.
Right. Well, I mean, I think about it, even like, obviously you're good friends with the Under Oath guys, and those guys are in a place right now where, they're about to go on tour with Chasing Safety. And again, like in retrospect, Define the Great Line sold more copies. It probably is technically their most successful album. But when you think of like lasting legacy, it right now, if you were to do like a sales of Chasing Safety reunion tour versus like a Define the Great Line sales of reunion tour,
No
I
doubt.
actually
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if Chasing Safety actually ended up selling more, because
Yeah, for
again, I
sure.
think
I
there's a
think
more of
so.
a lasting legacy because of how early it came versus Define the Great Line, which again, even though it was more successful, I do think maybe Chasing Safety has more of a lasting legacy. And I do think that might be similar for you guys. And again, I was just curious kind of how maybe you thought
Yeah.
through
And
some of
there,
that.
that's more developed than you think in that, like, if you ask Ebel, he says on the question, he spent the amount of money he says he spent to market the question is like insane. But he said the week's end he made incredible profit on because he put
Mm.
nothing into it and it blew up on its own. So
I
he
would
says
imagine
he got
Chasing Safety
rich
was probably
on.
similar in that way too.
Yes, that absolutely. It's like it just happened and then got big with no marketing money or anything on its own situation and time and place. And then the follow-up records you is a big deal. Everybody knows about it. It's going off the wind of the first record and it gets all the marketing dollars and the public awareness is high. So it almost doesn't. I mean, it obviously matters what your second record is, and you have to nail it on some level, but it has a benefit that the first record had to create the momentum.
Yeah.
So that is
So
true, and everybody, and that's true with Under Oath, it's true with us in that
Right.
way.
yeah.
But both records seem to deliver as far as that, because you can have a flop second record. That's obviously possible too. So
Right.
you had to, it has to be both. And I think both of us did a good job. And the other thing I think that really is the thing I like the most about a band like Under Oath is that they, you know, do the work of having to separate yourself and reinvent yourself over time. I think we kind of both share that versus like trying to just sell more or live up to a certain
Mhm.
expectation. I do. You had to respect when bands continue to reinvent and separate themselves from their previous work. I do believe that is the overall, but for better or worse, I do think that is the better path.
Sure. Well, from someone from your perspective, and I don't think this applies to Emery, so I think you're in the clear. But I'm curious what you think, being on the inside, um, when you see bands that all of a sudden, after a number of years, a number of records that maybe didn't sell quite as well as they should have, where all of a sudden a label maybe picks them up for the first time, or a new label picks them up, let's say, and they just start pushing the living shit out of the record. Um, huge marketing ploy, 10 music videos. They're trying to plaster it in front of as many faces as possible, every single social media site. Do you think that there is merit to that, where they try to recapture that magic of something that happened maybe 10 years ago with their first record when things were just different?
Well, it you sound like you're asking me, and I'll give you the obnoxious answer maybe that you want. That is marketing stupid? Yes,
Yeah, that's basically what I'm asking.
marketing is stupid. It just like something about marketing is inherently stupid. I don't know, and
Yeah,
it's like I feel like it's almost more clear now that like marketing and press and those things are manufactured, but they do work or have worked. But most people don't want something that they feel was marketed to them.
yeah,
They never did want it. It's never been better. It just can be effective at certain times and places. But you're not trying to respond to marketing as a consumer or fan or enthusiast or follower of or participant in a scene. You're not wanting to respond to marketing.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's
yeah,
like if you have good marketing, it feels good, and you would say you'd want it as a business owner or a brand or whatever. But on the artistic level, it's marketing achievements don't mean as much as some
kind of
other
a
type of organic achievement.
kind of a
They
cred killer is what you're saying.
I mean, that's not my favorite term, the cred, because its
Gatekeepery.
own it becomes its own, like, cred is its own weird objective to
Yeah,
seek.
yeah, makes
So
sense.
once you name, I believe in the saying that would say, once something is something that's a good measurement, once it becomes a metric, it's a bad measurement after that. I
That's a
think
good
that's
line.
true with cred or record sales or whatever you can measure. As soon as you're trying to index that, so now it's Spotify monthly, whatever.
Yeah,
So Like that's what you go by because that's what you go by. But then there's the people going directly after that target, and it's less organic. So that whole thing, that whole terrain, I really do think is like what you measure yourself by. It only that's what I'm saying. After 20 years,
Yeah.
whatever the thing is you're chasing constantly shifts and doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
So
how do you guys do that? Being mostly DIY, I mean, I would say, I mean, you guys do a lot of like your own marketing, and your marketing is kind of just cool shit that that fans want to see. Like when you guys did the big live stream of the whole album, that was cool as hell. That's the kind of stuff that I think the scene in general wants to see. Um, how do you view, pushing a record or pushing a tour or something like that? Especially with the mentality that you just explained.
well, I would another way I would say it is that it's relatively low self-esteem. Like you have to have a certain esteem of yourself to be marketed and like step in, like act
Yeah.
at a higher level that I don't have. But so to us, the drive is more to create something unique enough that it can get talked about or whatever. Like it's not that all the stuff we did during the pandemic or those streams or anything is what anybody necessarily wanted. It's just what we thought we could do
I
because
wanted it. It was awesome.
yeah, but it's it's just it's a way it sounds sad the way I'm saying it, but you have to have a way to keep going with something that you're wanting to do, even if it's customize a tour bus for yourself.
Yeah.
And when you see the opportunity to do a stream different or do a show different or try acoustic shows, those each of those challenges is a way of trying to do something new for
Yeah.
you so that your engagement with what Emory, like my engagement with Emory is constantly changing. It's, so it reinvents itself and I just am participating with it for its whatever it is, but I have to be engaged with it.
Sure.
I have to want to be excited or enjoy it. And that's slightly different than just calculating what'll succeed or if you get money or if you think. So I think we feel a little bit freer than other bands to try new things, podcasting. We're
Yeah.
just a little less. My criticism of musicians is that they're too precious and take themselves seriously and need to be safe and stuff like that's we look stupid and do more stupid things, but that's for us.
Yeah.
That's the way I describe it.
Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting take. And I think that there's a lot of bands, especially in the kind of meager years of, the mid 2010s, early 2010s, where a lot of bands were looking at you guys being like, I wish I had that kind of freedom, but they had it. They just weren't willing to, seize
Yeah.
on it,
Like so one way to say it if you want to drill in farther is like when Amberlin hung up their skates,
Yeah.
that and I love I love Amberlin, but you could say and they've been more successful than us, so good. But when they hung it up, they had this mentality. There was a distinct philosophical difference in where we were both coming from at the time, and theirs was like we want to go out on top, like we've accomplished all this, and the time is over, and we're gonna go out on a high note, and this, that, whatever. And for us, it was like it. I don't even know what you're talking about. Why would I stop doing we like what we do that we like to do? I don't care if it looks stupid or good or like I mean, we just like it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so we've done a lot of dumb stuff, but that it's only for us. That it primarily is something that we do. It might sound stupid. I'm just saying, Devin and Toby and I, and even the guys that we started with before that, we were in college in 98, 99, goofing off, like doing crazy ideas together. Long before Emory existed, we were doing weird stuff. We were just doing stuff together as friends. And then one of our ideas was Emory. So it just isn't something we've ever been interested in not doing. Better or worse, look silly or not, up or down. It's for us to do. It's not for how it looks out there or what anybody thinks, really. It's like it's funny to us that we still have stuff to do.
That is kind of funny.
we've been friends since. I mean, Devin was on my T-ball team. That was 35 years ago. 36, 7 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
Devin was on my T-ball team. He was a shortstop. And when I was in second grade.
Was he even any good?
He's the best player on the team. I was not
Of
good,
course
but
he
he was the
was.
best player on the team. I'm in second grade. He's a shortstop. It's like, wow, that guy's awesome.
He's
You know,
golden boy.
that-
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
right.
do love the fact that, like Emory does feel like, especially out of the like music scene that you guys were in or have been associated with, it does feel like Emory just sort of is a little different in the sense of like, who thinks that they could have like 3-part harmonies with like literally like emo/screamo music? Like, who even has the idea that that would even be something that would be worthwhile to listen to? And yet you guys figured it out, and it sounds great, and you basically have been able to like make a 20+ year career doing just that. And it's like, who would ever even think that that is even a possibility in that
No,
kind of like
right.
alternative music?
No, yeah. I like it wasn't something that was when we started doing it, it was unliked. It was unpopular. It was disliked by those. And I think that that actually is important. But we were in South Carolina, found this kind of music, and we're like, that is so awesome that you can have the freedom to scream or like push the boundaries or do all this weird stuff that didn't on the radio because we didn't even know until we were in college. We discovered this like indie
Yeah.
thing. Like, whoa, the freedom in that is so crazy. And we started doing it, and our girlfriends and our families, they're like, that's so horrible. They thought it was so horrible that we would do stuff like that and it sounded like that and we would use our voices like that. And we're like, no, it's totally awesome. And them not liking it, not getting it, it's just something about that was important. Like they didn't like it. It wasn't known that in a few years 14-year-old girls will like screaming.
Yeah.
It wasn't it was not that wasn't the point of view. It was this is what they hate. This is what they don't like is what it felt like to us, but we like, it was a avant-garde kind of situation for us given where we were. And then we moved to Seattle and found more and more people that kind of got that counterculture. It's supposed to be obnoxious. I mean, it's ADD obnoxious nonsense. Like it's
Yeah.
dramatic. We're just trying to do things that are absurd beyond that's where it comes from. That's what it is. It's absurd feeling. So
Yeah.
we're trying to pull off weird, crazy stuff. And then it somehow becomes popular, That's how it formed for us.
The fact
So
that
we're
they
trying to
hated it,
subvert expectations.
right.
That's very fundamental.
Sure. The fact that they hated it, did that tell you that you were kind of more on the right track than you thought?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's like I'm sure that's where it comes from. Like fuck you, dad. I'm sure it's something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. A little Rage
you
Against the
don't get
Machine
it.
style.
That's why we do it. That's probably it. It's probably not much more complicated than that.
Yeah. I always love that that psychological perspective of it, because that really is just like the tried and true, timeless perspective of someone in their late adolescence.
I mean, it's just expressing. I mean, is it that? Maybe it's actually that simple. It's just you're expressing anger in a contrary way, and then trying to figure out how to make that work or something. It's like, I mean, maybe it's that simple. Maybe the whole thing's kind of that simple because the music is obnoxious. Let's be honest. Like all of the whole scene is like, and hardcore.
Yeah.
I'm older now. It's just more clear, but it is obnoxious on purpose. That is the point. And then other people like it, and you start going, oh, so you're like saying, I'm going to do this harsh thing and see if I can make people say they like it. It's like a game, So if it makes us laugh or it's extreme or if it's crazy, like when we made Walls go halftime,
Yeah.
that was a joke of an idea, but it was right somehow.
Right.
It was like,
Yeah.
but what if we slowed down even more? And it was like halftime because we weren't playing that part in the halftime-y way. We were just playing the end. It was dumb. And then it's like, what if we did something hilarious? And the first time we play it, we laugh, like fall on the floor laughing. That's hilarious. But it was the right thing.
Honestly, this really reminds me of when we've talked to Josh Porter about like showbread music, and it's like this is
Yeah.
literally the same mentality that they had when it came to showbread of like this is just what we like, and also part of it is hilarious to us, and like
I
let's
mean, it's
just do a thing.
reactionary, so I'm saying I like it, but it's also designed to fuck with people or something. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, and
combination
that's
of those
exactly
at
what
least.
Josh Porter seems to, at least the way that he thinks about showbread. That seems to be a common thread between both of your guys' bands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could have done Jackass if we'd have thought about it. That would have felt similar. So you know what I mean? Like we were doing stuff pranks with if we could get a camera, we would be doing pranks or we do a it's obnoxious. I get, we're just misfits at school. It's class clown ADD energy expressed fully or something. But the emo is real. I mean, it's real. Like the it's that when we heard emo is a thing, it's like, wait a minute, it's just like expressing emotion, and you're like, yeah, what else is music than that? So it's like whatever that is, it's also genuine. So it's not just a joke, but it's definitely partly a joke.
Hmm. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad what was maybe potentially a joke or half of a joke,
Partly a joke,
partly a joke, has turned
but
into
partly
something
very
that,
sincere.
yeah, partly a joke, partly sincere, but it's turned into 20 years of music that has been so important for Cullen and I, and so I'm
Mhm.
just really grateful for that, and the fact that you guys still like kind of go back and it's like, all right, that album, even though that was 20 years ago, and you're entirely different human beings, you're twice as old as you when you first made Weeks End, and you're
Mhm.
like, that's still an important thing for us to connect to, and clearly there are a lot of people in the world that still connect to it, and you're wanting to celebrate it. And I'm super stoked to again see you guys in a couple of weeks, to see you celebrate an album that has been a lot to me, a lot to you guys, and a lot to a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, musically odd to think my whole year musically is still from what I mean. It's stuff from 20 years ago, and I'll play it 65 times this year musically.
Right.
So
Well,
but it's cool. Like, and you try to make it different every night, and it is fun. I mean, it's definitely an honor and fun and challenging. I mean, it is all those things, but you
right.
know, it's like the songs are so known. The way that it actually feels in practicality is like to show up and try to, because the music and the recordings mean so much to people, like the literal songs, which are an abstract quality a song has, and its recording, the embodiment of that song. I'm not actually required for like they exist, and we have to try to show up and compete with the concept and recording of the song. Like
Right.
you feel like you have to, like it feels like a direct competition from that thing we did 20 years ago, and can we deliver that or exceed that? If not, then that feels bad. You can see how that feels bad,
Yeah.
because it's almost you're in competition with the recording. As the 20 years later, I got to go out there and figure out how to. Otherwise, you could have stayed home with the recording. In fact, we
Right.
can't.
You
Are
We do
you
know,
better
something
than
more than that.
23-year-old Matt is basically.
It's not that. I mean, yeah, you do feel that sense about it a little bit.
that is something I've always been curious about, especially from a guitarist perspective. Is do you? I think guitarists kind of go through like different rigs, right? They want to change up, how their sound is a little bit, especially record to record or recording to recording. Um, when you're going back and looking at what Matt, you were in 2003, 2004, writing this music, uh, do you want to continue to kind of replicate that sound, or do you want to just bring your modern sound and play that older stuff?
Um, I think there's an inverse relationship with the creating special stuff that when you're younger. I mean, I think I'm finding it hard to wrestle with this. And as far as I know, anybody that's being honest is struggling in such that, let's just say your yellow card. You made
Yeah.
more money last year than you ever dreamed was possible.
Yeah,
Ever dreamed was possible if you're in yellow card or Jimmy Eat World last year.
sure.
We'll make more money this year than any other year. that's amazing. I'm so glad the value is there that was created and whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
But you know that whether or not you make new music, it's not going to probably matter at all. And that's the thing that you did think your value was based on, is your ability to like create music. Because when you're doing these bands and you're talking to people, they're only saying, like, if you talk to an old person or somebody that's not in the scene and you tell them you're in a band, they go, "You write your own songs?" It's like, how can you write songs that people care about? Like
Want to
that
hear.
value, there's nothing like that. But can you do Ocean Avenue or Walls? Maybe only when you're young and stupid.
Mm,
And you maybe not even that good of a player, and maybe you have no fucking idea about gear, and you can't hardly tune your guitar, but somehow you got that song.
Yeah.
And then so it's not even close to in question now that I actually understand music and performance and my guitar tone and my voice as a guitar, like all those things I'm 1,000 times better. But nothing, I don't know if we can do anything of relevance if we tried.
right.
Because, and I don't know if that's because we can't or because nobody cares. I don't really know. But,
Yeah.
and that's, I mean, I'm saying that overly dramatic, and anything's possible, but that tension is built into when you're younger. Somehow when you're 19, you just, something is more, you have an access to a certain thing, and then as a mature player you have a lot of confidence in other things.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're in balance, but they're also in tension there.
So it's like the one area where the Dunning-Kruger effect actually benefits you.
Absolutely. That you said that exactly right. That's exactly right. There's no doubt about that. When you are 19 and your ego is high and your everything is just whatever, you're doing something so crazy. You
Yeah.
have a gear maybe, or an axe. I don't know exactly what it is, and it's not, I mean, it's possible, but even if you think about people that become pro songwriters like Jack Antonoff or whatever, it's still not, I don't know if it's the same thing. Like once you get to be a pro at songwriting, that's still different than your 19-year-old songwriting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sure.
Like it's a one-time shot on some level that you have to express your youth at its, maybe, I mean, it's not, athletes have that. It's not
Yeah.
weird,
That's
is it?
absolutely true. Yeah.
So there's a certain time athletically where is most your general prime. So
Right.
Yeah.
I think songwriters have that too. Or you become a pro in some way that, but that's something still different about that pro thing than it is about the,
Yeah. Yeah. The people that are sitting together in Nashville,
yeah.
writing, 25 number one country hits a year. They've got
That's like a
some.
dark art, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah. They've got something else figured out.
Yeah.
They've sold their soul to the devil, I think.
Yeah, it's something that's a little, something's wrong with that. I'm
That's
not,
what makes like someone like Johnny Cash in particular so amazing. Is
Yeah.
like he had what,
Forever.
like he had a number one hit in like 5 different decades or something. And not to say he like exclusively wrote every single song throughout every one of those decades. Maybe he did, I don't know. But it is to say like this guy was a part of the creation of a song for 50, maybe even 60 years that captured the imagination of people in different generations. And like there's very few people who have been able to do that. And
yeah,
that's incredible.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But I think your question actually natively was about guitar playing or
Oh
gear and
yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like that.
You're
And
right.
if I'm going to loop back on that, like the thing that becomes of value over time is that I feel that like if I'm playing guitar, it's more clear today when I play guitar that it sounds like it's my style.
Mhm.
And so, like, the way that I play guitar seems to shine more over time, and the gear obviously less. And so, there's like a gear minimalism that I would have now, when early on I would have had insecurities. I would have have more insecurities and wanted more or bigger or more special gear. And now I feel that the least impressive, the more simplistic my gear can be, and I can still retain my expressiveness, that's more of like what I am going for as a guitarist.
Right.
And
Because
that is a higher payoff.
because then it's the chops that are coming through, right? It's like I can make this tone, or I can make these phrasing sound really really good without all of the fancy doodads, right? I mean,
Yeah, like
whenever I play guitar, I
yes.
have to cover it up with as much reverb as possible because I suck.
Yeah, it's like I want it to sound like my fingers more than the gear. It's like
Yeah,
I can feel that being true because I just have more confidence in my whatever my vibrato. Like those guitars where it's in tune no matter if it's not in tune. Do you know what I'm
yeah,
talking about?
yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking
What are
about.
those called?
I have no idea what the is it the are you talking about the
There's,
actual guitar, like the
there's these
brand?
tuning machines that you can put on the
Yeah,
thing, and they go by
yeah,
tension. So they tune themselves in real time mechanically, so
yeah.
they can't be out of tune.
They're
And you
weird.
set the threshold, and you can't even bend the strings.
Yeah,
Like, well, no matter what you play, it sounds perfect because it adjusts the tension to be in tune. And like, I don't like that. Like, like I'm trying to bend those strings as much as I can to get to sound to be noticeable.
I
Is
played
what
one.
I'm doing with the strings.
Yeah, yeah. I played one time. I can't remember the name of what you're talking about, but it felt like I was playing like a MIDI keyboard,
Right.
and
Right.
without like the little nodule that you can flick around
Yeah.
and
I mean,
change.
I'm like wiggling and pulling on the strings on it's just to try to make, I'm trying to get character to come out of it. That's like imperfection. Like I'm
Right.
milking the imperfection or the in-betweenness of things in some way. Like that's what is on my mind musically is like
Yeah.
pushing a boundary or doing a bend or like making it weird or getting noticed. I mean, I think that maybe that's always what it is like the getting, like, if you're watching Emory, you're seeing Josh do this and Devin saying and Toby saying,
Yeah.
like, we're all trying to get attention and Dave's doing, it's like, it's not the most, like, you hear 4 to 6 people trying to be the center of attention at once.
Yeah.
That's not really advisable, but that is kind of, that I do think that when I look at it, that is part of what we're doing. Is
That
just everybody trying to get some attention and do things that stand out, not be perfect.
yeah. I love that aspect though. I mean that's true musicianship in my opinion.
Well,
Um
I mean, it's not necessarily. It can be very it can be not clear, like what you're supposed to be listening to. Like,
if you can make it sound good, that means you're a true musician. I mean, The Who is a great example of that, right? The Who is 4 players that all wanted all the attention all the time. And
yeah, yeah,
there's no reason that they should have been able to gel together. You guys
yeah.
are a great
That's part of
example.
the way it feels. I would say that's kind of how it feels. Like
Yeah,
it's a tension, but it's not competitive. It's not that competitive. It's just
right.
like there's something about Toby that is deferential of focus and power. He doesn't really like. He'd be happy if he could get less attention. He'd be happy if he could just blend in the background, but he can't help it. But
Yeah,
get attention too, you know. But it's not. He. It could be true that he commanded more attention and we were more built around him than he really actually wants it to be.
yeah. Or maybe even thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the top 5 most guilty pleasure artists of Matt Carter.
Okay. Okay, I don't think I have 5 in my mind, but they will come as I go. I'll just start with where I start because I know my number 1 answer right away.
Sounds good.
This is so obviously first of all, guilty pleasure sometimes means that people are just, I mean, what's the guilt part? Help me under
The guilty part is like,
it's
yeah,
not seen
I
as cool.
do like them. Like I
Mhm.
shouldn't like them based off of especially the senior in. Your friends would generally make fun of you about it.
Yeah, so I tend to still want to make the arguments that the things that feel guilt that other people might feel guilty about, there's more profoundness there. But my first one is Kesha. You
Oh,
just
yeah.
have to
Great.
understand that there's depth there
Yeah.
that's more than just a guilty thing. I really believe that. But I think Kesha is very awesome, and she has an album that came out a couple years ago, a year and a half ago or something, after her long, I guess, ordeal she's been through with everything or whatever. And it's just, my gosh, it's introspective. It's kind of psychedelic. It's acoustic. It's not, there's only one song that's kind of a dance song on it. And it's just, I mean, it is so awesome. I mean, I just really, really like it. But to say it, yeah, and I've always been a fan of her, big songs or whatever too. But her last album, I just find it deep. So if that can count as a guilty pleasure, I have always been and am a Kesha fan, and very legitimately on her last record.
That is a perfect answer, and I think that might actually be the most commonly answered guilty pleasure.
Oh, other people got that?
Yeah, people
Yeah, a
I
lot
love
of
just didn't
people
think
Kesha.
like
anybody knew
Kesha.
about her last album. I didn't think anybody got it or
Yeah,
knew about it hardly.
I think people in this scene especially
Oh, good.
seem to
Good.
have a liking to her. So that means all the guilty pleasure fans need to get together, and it won't be so guilty anymore.
Yeah,
There you
no,
go.
and again, I'm just saying, I think it's actually real quality in there and
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, another one that is, I guess guilty. Yeah, well, I am very unable to not be in love with Casey Musgraves and her music also.
Mm.
So Casey and Kesha, for what maybe it's just I don't know what it is, but they just land in the spot for me where it's very hard for me not to be overtaken by what they do. It just resonates with me or
Yeah.
what. But Casey, almost all of her stuff, maybe early on it was more country, and I like that less. But where she has gone, and taken her career, I'm just super on board with it, and the producers that work with her, and the way it's arranged, and her. I resonate with her just on some level. I did a talent show with my kindergarten daughter, and we did Rainbow by Casey Musgraves.
Mm.
I played the piano and she sang it as a kindergartner, and it was like the best musical experience. I mean, I'm crying so immediate. Like doing that was cry city for me. Like most satisfying musical moment in my life.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, Casey feels like one of those artists that, like, in terms of that, like, kind of pop world, like, whatever you want to describe, like, the scene that she's in, like, she can't do any wrong. Like, she just seems like such an, like, innocent person that can, like, anything that she's ever gonna release is gonna be beloved by the people that she's in.
Yeah.
Or the scene that she's in, because, yeah, she's just like she's so innocent and, like, great at what she does,
Yeah.
and yeah, she's just
I mean,
wonderful.
there's like the level on which she's just being a persona that for whatever reason I just fall into on the simplest level. And I feel that her musical choices, who she surrounds herself, her song selection, her production value, I mean, it just checks out all the way through, for me. But not that I would have predicted that, just I find that to be true. Then if I'm going from there, it's like I'm drawn into the music of that my kids resonate with, because
Mm.
that I think that's a pretty good definition of guilty pleasure. It's like what they're finding and doing that then I find myself really liking and appreciating that they have a fresh take on stuff. But I mean, and this is a very simple one, but Olivia Rodrigo is,
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Sure.
it's
Sure.
beyond criticism to me, and I feel a sense of I feel a real sense of connection when my daughters are liking it, that they're liking stuff that I recognize as stuff I like, filtered through another generation and co-writers and things
Yeah.
that, I hear what she's copying in the songs. It's very clear to me who this song is. I can hear the reference tracks that they were channeling to write this song, that song. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy for me to, on some level, criticize, but I don't criticize. And feel it's like honoring like the type of alternativeness of what she pulls from and does. I can hear it almost directly. I could just make a list of what I think she's actually copying and where it comes from, but I find it faithful and good and very pleasing to listen to, and then it resonates on my kids same level. So it's
So
like
your
I
kids
like the
know
same
about
music as my
Paramore now,
kids.
right? Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's she paid Kate. Olivia paid Haley a bunch of money for sounding like her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like she gave her songwriting credit, or in some ways on
Yeah. Kind of
whatever the
retroactively, right? And she's like, "Oh,
retroactively, and
I
not
didn't
because it's the
realize."
closest
Yeah.
song, it's because it's like it's obviously Paramore vibes for this
Yeah.
song by this modern person, and it's just like, yeah, of course, pay her. But I think Haley's made more money on that than she,
Yeah.
off of this gift from Olivia, who's clearly it's so if they've got all that worked out good, like I consider all that good versus lawsuits, and it's
Yeah.
obviously is that rechanneled and good. good, because Haley got it from somewhere.
Yeah.
So, the but we're on the thin edge sometimes of where you hear recycles of stuff, but that's okay.
Right.
I just don't think that's bad. I just think it is overall good because it seems like you're crossing the same emotional feelings across generations.
Yeah.
So it seems like you're amplifying these important emotions across generations to me. I love
Yeah.
it.
Imitation's the highest form of
Yeah.
flattery, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, every artist does it, right?
That's 3 of them. Okay, so, if I had to go, what else do my kids like? I've always, I mean, I think that all my kids and I and wife are all always bobbing to Katy Perry anytime that's been very cross-generational for
Sure.
us, and Katy has ties all the way back.
That's right.
That's interesting. That's one that has changed in my opinion too, because all my students love Katy Perry. And I have back in the day, I was a big hater, right? But now I'm like kind of coming around to it. I'm like, yeah, it's actually pretty good. You know,
Yeah,
there's good
and
beats, there's good lines, there's good melodies. It's just good all around.
it's a really good and, I mean, her and I wonder because I believe about music that it has these, resonant qualities with people where you're resonating with people on a level and then the music I just really think that people that like the same music actually share something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's deeper than simple preference. So, Katy Perry is related to the Christian scene, Katie Hudson, and some of the same emotive worship background, higher transcend. I mean, I really think there's stuff that certain people don't like certain the same music as me at all, and that's fine. But there's certain people, and she has in the mainstream way. I feel like we have a shared somehow background or whatever in what
Yeah,
what she does,
for
and
sure.
also one time I was at. Do you remember when they had that bar in New York that Fallout Boy and Travis from Gym Class Heroes and some other people owned in New
No,
York?
I haven't
I
heard
haven't
this
heard about
before.
this.
So there was like at least, oh, I think Midtown. Anyway, they owned a bar together in New York, and I was been friends with Travis from Gym Class, who was one of the owners of that bar. And so one time, me and my sister and my wife were in New York, and we went and hung out with Travis at his bar in Manhattan. And he was dating Katy Perry at the time, so it's like we went and he put us at his VIP roped off table. So there's like actually one time when I'm sitting at a bar in New York with my wife and Katy Perry and Travis from Gym Class, and it was like this weird night. Like he and Katy Perry were in a fight, and they were not talking. It was
Mm.
super awkward and terrible. But we came as it was whatever. I just thought that was a really weird situation. But hung out with her at Travis's bar one time. In Manhattan and everything, and so just that all that's connected is funny stuff.
Wow.
Oh man, I want to know more about those
And
vibes.
she
I would
dated
love to
Matt.
go
She
fly
used to
on the
date
wall.
Matt Thiessen
Yeah.
way
Yeah,
back too. So
yeah,
it's like, she's part of I'm just saying all those point to the fact that the musical resonance actually is there, I think,
yeah.
with that all that stuff.
That's very true. I think you're absolutely right there. The fabric of the social or the musical lineage is there at the
Yeah.
very least, right?
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
And Katy Perry
Yeah.
knows who Amy Grant is. Let's put it that way.
that's true.
She knows I'm sure
She
she
knows
knows a lot of
baby.
who a lot of people are.
I think you got one more, right?
One more.
Okay, that's 4. Okay, let me see if I can get another one coming. Um okay, let's see if I can get let me see if I can find I'm not. I'm wanting to do something like country to round it out and not just be stuck here. I could do more kid stuff, but I think if I'm listening, I guess he must rave is kind of Christian. I mean,
Kinda
country. I
country.
wish I could come up with a Christian guilty pleasure. Wouldn't that be good?
That would be good.
Let
Those
me
are
see
always
if
the
I can
best
get one.
ones,
Audio A.
especially
I
like
mean, I
classic
do.
CCM stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
What?
Especially like classic CCM stuff, but I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Yeah. No, that's true. Let me see. I'm studying kind of through Southern gospel stuff right now.
Mm,
Um, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pull that as a guilty pleasure, but I will tell you I'm listening to old school Southern gospel a decent amount, trying to I'm interested in the whole Christian. I mean, always have been. I like the Christian space, but I've always found it difficult to sincerely like an artist, but I can feel moved by worship music. You know what I mean? So I know that's the right guilty pleasure. So I'm trying to figure out what I could name, but it is harder. Um, I th- think, let's see, what is my favorite Christian band? um, out of the bands, I don't know if anybody knows this band, but out of the bands that were at Mars Hill Church, Citizens and Saints,
Oh
if you
yeah.
know
Yeah,
that
for sure.
band, the guy that sings for that, his name's Zach Bolin, and it's I'm pretty sure his voice is competitive at any possible level that Zach Bryan's is, or
Yeah.
Chris Stapleton or almost in that level. And I've always been very moved by his voice. So the fact that it's Christian, it will give a guilty pleasure, but I just really think is profoundly talented. He's always been one of his vocals move me almost no matter what he does. And a lot of the music they do is just a Christian thing or worship thing, and I really struggle with it. But if it's like, how am I supposed to really balance the meaning, the lyrics, where it comes from, the sound? I don't really know how you're supposed, like, if you can get moved by music, you know what I mean? Like, worship
Yeah.
music will turn me off a lot, but it's also really getting close on some levels too. So it's
Yeah.
just this close for me, whether or not I can buy it or not. But
Yeah.
Zach, I always believe it.
Do you find that it is usually the lyrical content, or is it usually the musical movement that gets you?
Well, musically and compositionally, I think it's really usually doing really a lot
Yeah.
of. They have a lot. It's a lot of potential there, and lyrically, I mean, my opinion is like Zach could be Zach Bryan, but his lyrical content is, I don't know what it is. It's just like you're
Yeah.
it gets close to where you're singing about God, but it sounds like you're singing about a girl, and somehow you just get
God is a girl.
a little confused there between the two of like, it's good, but it's a little bit harder to it's somehow that can make it confusing.
Yeah.
So that I don't know if it's a lyrical barrier or just or ideological, like, it's like, where's it coming from? Sometimes it can be more challenging, I think, if
Sure.
you're trying to bring God into it, because maybe it's just the human passion in your voice is enough, and then it can be confusing.
I totally
You know
totally
what I mean?
understand what you mean. Totally
Yeah.
understand what you mean.
I'm open-minded on it. However, it can work. Like, I believe in it, but if you're doing Christian music, somehow you are limiting yourself. It feels like if you're doing Christian music, that's valid, but you're self-limiting. That's what I think.
Totally.
Mm.
Like, there's
Totally.
more possible for people that are thinking they're doing Christian music for a Christian audience. Somehow they're self-limiting, and I think the potential actually is higher.
Oh, I 100% agree. Has
The
to be.
good ones, and the bad ones
Yeah.
is just bad.
Now,
Right.
earning potential, probably not so much, but that's completely different, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And I don't know if I
You
told you or
guys
not,
still would
but
have a bus if you were worship music.
yeah, but so that all that effort we were putting into the bus, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but Toby and I have been working on this thing. We got a computer guy, and we're working on these algorithms that are test the sincerity of vocalists with like AI technology and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. That's something that's
Really?
needed.
Yeah. So it's
So
like it's an authenticity, because we're all about being real and authenticity. So we're
Yeah,
trying to
you're
figure out
making
how
emo
can
music, so yeah.
yeah. So you
right.
have to have
So
a litmus test. So who's your litmus test? Because it can't be Toby. You can't let it be close to home. It's got to be someone like that is just like the most authentically true to themselves while
right.
they're vocal.
Right. So, I mean, most of the training data is Emory itself, because Emory is the most
Okay.
authentic and transparent band
Right.
of all
Oh,
time.
okay.
So
So
it is the primary training data in the AI models in the early beta versions.
maybe
But
that should be the control group,
that's the
right?
control group. That's
Okay.
the
Okay.
standard of
All right.
which you would measure. And then we're going to use that data and find other like-minded bands, and then run it out on the open thing. So there'll be a score per. So you put in a
Yeah.
Spotify URL on the website, and it'll tell you how authentic the emotion truly is, but based on it analyzes the lyric content, the sound, the tonality, and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a while before it's like public launch, but we're
Yeah.
in that
So
process.
it's like, is this band emo, but it's like, is this band authentic.com?
Yes. Yeah, and it's of judges like, is it true that that singer's really been through that thing he's singing about? Like it's complicated stuff. I
Is
can't
Sufjan
explain.
Stevens actually gay? Yeah, like it's gonna be those
Yes,
Yeah.
like
things. Yeah, I get that.
yeah, and so it just reads, and because even you can authentically do stuff that's storytelling, like doesn't have to be strictly true, but your own self belief in what you're doing, like you can read falseness basically in
Right.
people, and we believe that the AI can read it in artists. So if you listen to a song you're at the mall and you hear songs that sound like songs, but you don't think they're real songs, it's like playing at the Gap, and it sounds like a real band, but it's not a real band. Like
Yeah.
they'll score low obviously, because it's not authentic. And then somewhere in the middle, it's going to be,
Yeah.
so we're hoping that can contribute.
I
I
just
feel
want to
like you're
know
about to
where
disappoint a lot of gaylors.
Yeah.
I just want to know where Toby Mac falls on this, because I don't believe it for a moment.
Well, so I mean, I think
That
that's
guy
what
has
you have to
convictions like
measure
that.
is, does the person believe it? Are they chasing an audience and commercialism? Or because if you are fully delusional of your own wherever you are, that does work. That is
Yeah.
okay. Like
Yeah.
overall, it's better to be self-deluded and authentic than it is to be calculated for profit or commercial success.
True.
That's what I believe.
Millennials are going to eat this up because
Mhm.
millennials, they crave authenticity. So, I mean,
Right.
this is perfect. I think you guys have $1 million idea plus on your hands.
Mhm.
It's
I'll
awesome.
be
Good.
visiting that website, so I'm
Good.
all about it.
It might be a while, so it's just early
Yeah.
in there. But with the AI boom, you don't know how. We have to have our finger in it somewhere, and that's where I thought we
It's a
could put it.
brilliant place to put it.
Love it. Well, speaking along those lines, so you want to plug that, but anything else you'd like to plug in terms of Emory stuff? So obviously the tour's about to start here soon. Potentially, I don't know if you guys are writing now. I mean, whatever you guys want to say
Album number
about
10
what's
coming
going
out,
on.
maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have it like to plug or whatever, but I can give you the lowdown on the process there. And again, I already told you, it might be true that nobody gives a fuck if we ever write another song or not.
I get
Understood,
I give a
but
fuck.
we
I'm
like it
somebody.
to
I'm
do stuff.
somebody.
And sometimes people like what we do. People actually really understood and like rub some dirt on it. Feel very successful about that experiment and that album. So very happy with that. And so we're still driven by the idea that we have to push ourselves to some territory that'll be interesting to us. And so we're we're going to be slightly more experimental. We're exploring spaces that are a little more dynamic and less heavy.
Mm,
And we're doing a more stronger empowerment of all 6 members of the band, where each member is leading a batch of 3 songs and steward, like not necessarily
mm.
writing or whatever it is, but like we're going to try to maximize the rub some dirt on it, take the collective intelligence of Emory and empower each member to select what ideas are the most stimulating to them and have them champion 3 ideas through and release. And so that'll be 18 songs that we've got a bunch of ideas going, and it's like, who's going to take which idea and make it theirs and see it through, and then try to employ as much possible collective intelligence.
Yeah.
And try, so it's another experiment of trying to push the limits of what we're capable of collaboration whereas rub some dirt on it was trying to push the limits of the pressure of the live capture. This one is to try to farm as much of the Emery essence as we can from all the members as much as possible,
Mhm.
versus Toby and Devin do this, just instead of trying to redo other formulas, we're trying to create new formulas for gaining fresh excitement and staying with what are our musical strengths, and also probably putting it in a quieter space, because we love doing songs and stories and we do these acoustic pre-shows. I would say, if I'm pushing anything, come to the pre-show of the shows that we play in the afternoon. We do that with Gillespie, and it's just the best. It's like, musically, if
Yeah.
we play in a living room or arranged for 6 people but acoustic with a piano, it's just so deeply musically satisfying,
Mm.
because I think we just have a lot to offer in that space, maybe that other bands don't, and we don't necessarily aren't trying to scream harder again next time. That's not the approach. So we're flexing all those kind of muscles in the writing. So that's not that
Love it.
concrete, and the presentation of it should be pretty obnoxious, and we'll figure out the obnoxious ways to do it and present it, even
Yeah.
if we're not using as much distortion or screaming. We're looking for what are those levers to push that make it obnoxious.
I desperately want to hear a Southern gospel style Emery song.
Yeah, there's something
You
to
know?
that. I don't think that's going to be the album exactly, but I
No,
feel
no, no.
that
I know what you mean, but yeah. Go ahead.
when Devin and Toby and Gillespie, who all have that same exact, they all have the same really similar backgrounds of growing
Right.
up in a church and being labeled as prophets and scared of hell since they were age 4 and told they were going to change the world with their voice for Christ. Like all three of them have that, and it's like they'll sing these gospel songs from their, and it just sounds so good. Like I'm trying to figure out how we could capture them three doing that in a way that is good or really, because it's when they sing, the three of them sing together, like you got Toby and Devin and then Gillespie, and I promise you they all sound, it sounds like all three of them were meant to sing together when they
Yeah.
sing together. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a way we can capture and release something of that, because they're just something about the depth of where they all come from musically, like the specific three of them is, belongs together. So I'm trying to figure out what that would be.
I can only imagine. I hope you can find a spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that deserves a place in music recording history, especially.
Yeah. But anyway, the pre-show events that we do that and have a good time with it, and it's very loose
I
and
love that.
open and a lot of harmony, and that's what's fun.
That's great. That's
Oh
great.
yeah, love it. Well, Matt, thanks for chatting a little bit more, just being really candid about kind of like where you in terms of like 20 years now of Emory stuff, and just kind of like your reflections on all of that, and where you're at now. And I just really always appreciate your honesty and your kind of candidness. It's just really great. So thank you so much for chatting more about that, chatting about kind of where you guys are at right now. Super stoked to see you in a couple weeks. I'm going to be jamming out.
Right
You
on.
might even see me stage dive once or twice. So
Oh yeah,
we'll
you're good
we'll
at
see you
it, and
soon.
there's everybody knows y'all are famous, most famous from your stage diving clips more than anything else you've ever done.